It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Wednesday edition of the show. Thanks so much, everybody, for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. And, of course, big shout-out, as always, to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast. Well, today's show is brought to you by BASF, and we've got a big announcement. This is really fun. This has kind of been under wraps. Big product launch today. We are broadcasting from Great Falls, Montana, the Golden Triangle, and crops are looking they're looking okay after a big dump of rain that happened there over the weekend. But today it's all about exciting news. They even got the governor in town here today. Governor Gianforte is in town. We're going to hear from him here in a little bit. Today is the launch of Invigor Gold. Okay, so what is Invigor Gold? Well, it's a hybrid Brassica gensea. This is a new, a new member of the Invigor family. This is not Brassica napus. This is gensea. This is hybrids for areas that are a little bit more in that, what we would call like the fringe acre. And when I say fringe acre, I mean they're not in the traditional canola areas. Now, we know that when the canola price spikes, it's really high. We'll see people plant canola anywhere. But on normal years, I don't know. I'm not sure I'm going to get the moisture. I'm not sure Mother Nature's going to cooperate. Maybe a little bit too risky. This is where Invigor Gold fits. And we're going to hear from a great lineup of guests today about the opportunity. So big shout out to BASF for inviting RealAg Radio to be a part of this launch. If you do want to find out more, I encourage you to go to agriculture.basf.us. And why do I say that? Well, this is going to be a staggered release. This is a big opportunity for farmers right away. 2027 product launch in the market, 2027. It's going to be in the Central Plains in 2029. And all of our Canadian listeners are going to have to wait a little bit longer. The BASF is talking about early 2030s. We're going to hear a little bit more about that here as the show progresses. So very much a North American show here today, and looking forward to bringing it all to you. We're going to hear from Bryan Perry. He's the U.S. head of seeds and traits for BASF. We've got Hugo Borsari, who's the vice president for seeds and traits for North America. Krista Evans is with Montana Renewables. Of course, the renewable side of this, big opportunity in places like Montana when it comes to renewable diesel and SAF, when you've got Montana Renewables in your backyard right here in Great Falls. We're also going to hear from Dale Flikkema, who is a Montana farmer just outside of Bozeman, and he's also the VP of the U.S. Canola Association. He's going to talk about how this potentially fits into his rotation. He'll give us a bit of a crop update and how he sees the future for canola in the United States. And then we'll finish up with Stewart Brandt, who's the BASF Global Head of Canola Breeding. He's based out of Saskatoon, and he's going to talk about Invigor Gold from a technical aspect and talk about why hybrid Brassica gensea is a real opportunity in more of that brown soil zone, low organic matter kind of areas of North America, and maybe a little bit too about why the registration in Canada is pushed back longer than the United States. So great lineup here of guests. So one of the things that was really cool today at the launch, the governor of Montana was there at the launch, Governor Gianforte, and here's some of the audio from his scrum with the media.
It's really innovation that keeps industry growing, and ag is our number one industry in Montana. This new canola seed is going to allow, it's more drought resilient, and it's going to give new options to farmers here in Montana, both for the traditional uses of canola, but also the growing biofuels section that Calumet has really pioneered. So I'm just hats off to BASF for their innovation in this area, and we'll look forward to seeing the results on the ground.
Governor, how much pressure does it put on you as a state to try to entice a crushing facility now to come to the area of Montana?
Well, it's the economics that drives investment of this sort. So as this industry grows, the case is going to become more and more compelling.
That was the governor of Montana. Okay, what we're going to do is now take a break. This is an exciting day here for farmers in the Northern Plains, and we're going to break it all down for you. And I think after you hear all this, you're going to be pretty excited as well. Big thanks to BASF for the launch here of Invigor Gold. It's great to be a part of it, and we'll be back right after this.
At Alliance Seed, our premium varieties of wheat, durum, barley, and oats are crafted to fit the unique needs of your farm. By choosing Alliance Seed, you're selecting reliable seed that enhances your production potential and boosts your bottom line. Discover how our top-performing seed products can elevate your fields at allianceseed.com or call us at 1-877-270-2890.
Peter Johnson at Wheat Pete, RealAgriculture.com, and what an opportunity! Oh my gosh! You think you can't grow better wheat? You are absolutely wrong. We're going to show you how to strive for those record wheat yields that they get in the UK and in New Zealand. You can grow 150 bushel wheat. I'll show you how.
Catch Wheat Pete's Word every Wednesday on RealAgriculture.com or download the podcast on iTunes or Spotify.
If you only listen to RealAg Radio, you only get half the picture. For greater insight into the issues that affect farming, tune in to RealAgriculture.com. Crops, livestock, machinery, farm management, and the markets, even food and travel. Real Agriculture Online digs deeper into the topics that affect the way you work and live. So get connected today. Read, watch, and listen to the people who know at RealAgriculture.com.
Shaun Haney here with RealAg Radio, and like I mentioned, we are in Great Falls, Montana, just outside of Great Falls, Montana, and we're at the Invigor Gold launch with BASF. Big thanks to them for having us here in the field. And right now we're joined by the VP of Seed Traits for North America. It is Hugo Borsari. Hugo, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
Very good. Exciting day.
It is. Today we're here in Montana in order to celebrate the launch of Invigor Gold in North America.
Okay, so why is there so much excitement about Invigor Gold from your perspective?
As you know, there's an increasing demand for canola in terms of feed, food, and fuel. And there are some areas where it's very difficult to cultivate canola because it's hot and dry. And with this technology, with Invigor Gold, we believe that we're going to be able to help farmers to solve their needs and better cultivate canola in that kind of situation with a better yield stability and also to maximize profitability.
Yeah, and so we're talking about Brassica gensea, not Argentine canola. And what's exciting about this is that you mentioned in some areas it's hot and it's dry. We're in the Golden Triangle here in Montana. This is kind of the epicenter of hot and dry. So there's a planned launch for 2027 in the Northern Plains, 2029 in the Central Plains, and Canada sometime in the early 2030s. Why the differences in the launches?
Well, because of the nuances that we have in both Canada and the U.S. Just to give you an idea, there are three key pillars in order to enable us to launch Invigor Gold in both the U.S. and Canada. The first one is related to the deregulation of the Liberty Link trait globally. The second one is market acceptance. And the third one is to ensure that we have the registrations needed for crop protection to be used in that crop. So because of that, we need to respect the appropriate timeline for both countries.
You know, it's interesting. The governor who we heard from earlier on in the show here, Governor Gianforte, was very excited about the opportunity for Montana growers. And, you know, as you drive down I-15 coming down from Calgary, you know, I saw a lot of fallow. I saw a lot of wheat. Montana is obviously famous for its wheat, but also I saw a lot of fallow. This is an area that is really desperate for some other cropping options.
You're right. I think it's going to be an amazing option for farmers in this area, but also in other areas like the ones that you mentioned in the Central Great Plains and also in the brown soil in Canada. I think there's an amazing opportunity for farmers to take advantage of Invigor Gold in their crop rotation to help them maximize yield and profitability.
And so if I'm in an area that maybe, I've tried canola before, I've tried one of the Invigor hybrids, and, they work in the areas where there's, really, really strong organic matter and the appropriate rainfall. But we know we get into those fringe canola acres where the market gets a little bit softer. We move away from canola. Now, potentially, Gencia and Invigor Gold could be an option, and those no longer are fringe acres for canola.
That's right. In those kind of situations, in that kind of region, I think farmers are going to have an amazing tool to take advantage from and to reintroduce canola in their fields.
How many hybrids are coming to the market in 2027?
We're going to start with one hybrid, and then we're planning to bring many others in the upcoming years.
So Gencia has been around for a while. Why now? What's been the enabler, the launch pad for BASF to take this measure now?
First of all, our breeding program is pretty strong and pretty good. We're very confident in the quality of the germplasm that we're bringing to the marketplace. It's going to be a traded version with Liberty Link, and the good news is that in the coming years, we're planning to introduce in our Invigor Gold portfolio both club root resistance and also pod shatter.
So you're bringing the full package to acres that aren't used to a lot of traits coming into their area.
That's correct. That kind of full package is going to enable farmers to grow canola in that kind of difficult situation and help them to ensure a stable yield and maximize profitability.
The other thing we heard a lot about during the session when we were back at the university there was just, we're going to hear later from Montana Renewables, the excitement around biofuels and, creating that demand. That's got to give a seed company like yourself a little bit of push, some initiative to say, hey, you know what, we need more canola.
Yeah, as I mentioned, there's an increasing demand for canola in terms of feed, food, and also fuel. And we're pretty confident that Invigor Gold is going to help farmers to meet that increasing demand.
So coming to Canada in early 2030s, a little bit less definite on that release. Does that depend on the regulatory system, or what's the barriers there?
It depends on the regulatory framework and also stakeholder engagement. What I would say is that we're planning hard to bring that technology by the end of this decade or in the beginning of the next one.
Yeah, very cool. Well, exciting stuff. Hugo, I appreciate you joining us here today, and congratulations with the great launch. Growers and retailers from across the state of Montana really do appreciate it.
Thanks so much for being with us today.
Awesome stuff. Okay, we'll be right back here on RealAg Radio, broadcasting from just outside Great Falls, Montana, in a field, and talking about some of the great opportunities with Invigor Gold.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, host of the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com. Throughout the year, on the Soybean School, we'll bring you timely agronomic video content from planting to harvest, from the latest agronomic research to the latest in production technology. Check out our massive video library on YouTube, RealAgriculture.com, or download the audio podcast versions wherever you get your podcasts. The Soybean School is brought to you by Mazik Seeds and Lalamon Plant Care.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is a video series that showcases the latest in canola research and production agronomy. Learn from some of the best at your own pace through quick and timely producer-focused videos available on our YouTube channel. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is the quickest way to keep up to date on all the latest in canola production. Boost your canola IQ with the Canola School, brought to you by BASF, and visit canolaschool.com.
Hey, welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. We're at the Invigor Gold launch just outside of Great Falls, Montana. Beautiful day, like 75 degrees, enjoying it. We're joined right now by Bryan Perry. He is the U.S. head of seeds and traits. Bryan, it is great to chat with you.
Yeah, Shaun, thank you very much. Nice to chat with you as well today.
Pretty exciting day.
Man, not many days do you get the chance to launch a new crop, a new innovation to farmers, and do it right here in Montana with the mountains behind us.
Yeah, they are behind us. Montana does bring some fabulous scenery. In your opening address today, you compared today's launch to BASF, a similar launch BASF did in the Cotton Belt. Talk about that.
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit about the launch that we had and the transformative opportunity I think it'll bring to growers up here in the northern Great Plains in Montana. And the reference I had was our FiberMax cottonseed business. So born in Lubbock, Texas, very tough market, not a lot of rainfall. And I've met farmers that have personally come up to me and said how it transformed their farm, how it saved their farm. Because otherwise they were looking at, what do I grow? And I see that linkage here with Invigor Gold and the opportunity to really help growers out in these tougher, hotter, drier conditions.
Well, and in areas where they get a lot of rainfall, a lot of topsoil, they got a lot of cropping options. We know in the Midwest, so much focus on corn and beans. Other crops just have a hard time even getting into the discussion. And when you can grow the kind of corn yields they can there, you don't blame them. But in areas like this in Montana, where weather works against you, you plan for drought 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5 years, a crop type that brings some drought tolerance, there's some interest here from some of these growers.
Well, you think about the drought tolerance, the heat tolerance, right? I think what's allowed BASF to be in a position to focus on this is, you're right, corn and soybeans tend to be king, but for us, canola's king. We're the world's largest producer of canola with our Invigor brand. So we had built that base, but then we were able to look at, well, how do we branch it out? And now with the growing demand for oil crops, renewable biofuels, we saw a need and really wanted to look at how do you expand it in these areas where people have tried growing it, they need something else, but it just can't handle the environmental conditions.
Yeah, there is a lot of excitement on biofuels. There's no doubt about that, whether it's sustainable aviation fuel, renewable diesel, and Invigor Gold, Brassica Gencia fits into those programs.
Yeah, you look at, canola oil in general has been tagged as one of the preferred renewable biofuels just from studies done on reducing carbon emissions and just helping feed this overall growing demand. And I personally, putting my farm kid hat on, like knowing that we could have something that we grow here domestically in the U.S. and or in Canada, and then we could turn around and use it right here to help.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so one thing I'm kind of interested in is in terms of some of the numbers. Some of the numbers in terms of, growers, a lot of times they evaluate based on yield. What's the difference between, if somebody's been growing canola, the Invigor product line in the past on the Argentine side, and now they're looking at potentially Gencia and Invigor Gold. What's the yield difference?
Yeah, what we've seen is about an 8% difference whenever you look at the tougher environmental conditions. So I think it's important to note that if you get where we've grown traditional canola, traditional Invigor, you're going to see that crop thrive a little bit better where you don't have the hotter, drier, more coarse type soils. When we get into the markets we're targeting, we've seen on average 8% yield benefit. We expect that's only going to get to be more defined as we understand the crop more, as we provide and launch better hybrids that have been more tailored right here to this market.
It's interesting because, you did mention that obviously BASF, one of your big plays in the seed market is canola. For a lot of our U.S. listeners, though, they're like, what do you mean? There's like 1 to 2 million acres of canola in the U.S. Obviously, there's 20 to 22 million acres in Western Canada. That's where a lot of people think of canola. How big of a potential program? And things got to line up. Yeah. Let's be honest. Like renewable diesel's got to, the government's got to cooperate there. 45Z, SAF has, there has to be lots of incorporation there. What is the potential?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because today when we were listening to the Montana Renewables, Krista talk a little bit. She said their own demand alone could take care of 3 million acres just with Montana Renewables. Now, obviously, she talked about infrastructure and needing to expand crush capacity to be able to fill that. But for us, we start looking further south. We look at acres that are in this wheat fallow rotation, and we start seeing, man, could it be 10, 15, 20 million acres of opportunity in the U.S. to complement what we have up in Canada. So I do think the demand will drive a lot of that, but I also think future hybrids, how well they hold up, if they perform like what we're seeing here in this environmental conditions, I think those are real opportunities. And wow, you think about growers. I had another producer say, boy, then that means if I take some wheat out of rotation, I'm not only helping the soil health, I'm probably helping my price a little bit because, wheat price hasn't been the greatest. So if we take some acres out of production there, that could help support price. So that was also an interesting angle to think about this whole rotation benefit.
I know you're very budgets come to mind, and you mentioned some of the research dollars going back in revenue going back into research at BASF. This isn't just something that happened overnight. Give us an idea of the timelines that have been involved to get to today.
Yeah, it's kind of almost hard to believe it until you share it, but we started on this project back in 1997, and we're talking about commercializing it in 2027. So you're like, wow, 30 years. It's just hard to believe. But that is the time, because you have to think about, well, first I need to identify good germplasm. I need to identify the right trait package. I need to identify, does it fit in these markets? And, you have a bunch of other projects you're prioritizing. So it takes a long time, but that's why that commitment to innovation is so key. 10% of every dollar that BASF takes from customers buying our products goes back into R&D. So you have to have that engine to feed something, knowing that, wow, I'm investing in this, and it's not going to probably come to fruition for 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
I want to broaden out a little bit. I've got you here. You're looking at the North American business for seeds and traits. You're talking to growers across a lot of that geography. And they have a lot of growing a lot of different crops, but they have some similar needs. They're looking to be profitable. Where are we at in terms of the innovation curve when it comes to traits? We look at what happens in corn, and that's kind of where everything starts. And the other crops, sort of things work their way to them. Where are we at in an innovation curve?
Yeah, from a BASF perspective, I'll speak to us, and then also I could share what I see from an industry, right? But from a BASF standpoint, we've really tried to focus our R&D efforts in seed treatment, and crop protection around crop systems. So where we're at here, we think of a cereal/canola crop system. We have corn, soybean, and or maybe corn, soybean, cotton rotation. And then you also have, globally rice, is a very big crop. So our core R&D dollars from traits, crop protection, it's all going into those crop systems. So it's good for us with canola. Now, looking ahead, and this is also what gets me excited about BASF, I shared traits that we're launching right now for cotton. And then also I highlighted a trait we're getting ready to launch in soybean. But what I didn't talk about is that we have new herbicide-resistant tolerant traits that will fit corn and soybeans that we're also looking at for, call it 2034 timeframe, so out there but not that far out there, with new herbicides. And we're also looking at those traits being a fit in cotton and in canola. So the timelines for those other crops might be a little later than a corn soybean, because you got the mass acres and you make sure you to refine it there. And then we've got more to come. So BASF, actually, we're at a place where we're just starting to get going, and I think the pipeline will be pretty deep. From an industry, there is innovation on the horizon, but not quite at the clip like we used to see. So I do think that traits, new herbicides, weeds are going to continue to evolve. So it's going to be a key success factor for the future.
So are those new chemistries, or are they combinations and permutations of things that are already on the marketplace?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Shaun. And it's what gets me excited about BASF really being big into seeds and traits. We have new chemistries to complement new traits. And I think if you look at a lot of other seed companies, and we're really just starting to get into it big. It was about 8 years ago when we acquired some seed assets. the canola business we have, well-established cotton business, but that was newer to BASF, right? So we were always good at crop protection innovation, not as much seeds and traits to complement. Now we can put them together. And so those innovations, those traits I mentioned, we have a new mode of action in our pipeline that we've already identified trait technologies for, and then new AIs. So not just taking old stuff in the market, actually bringing complementary crop systems with traits, with new chemistries.
We're not talking about artificial insemination, and we're not talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about active ingredients.
I know. You got to clarify that on AI. I grew up near a dairy farm, too, so sometimes the whole AI terminology gets off. So I appreciate you clarifying that for your listeners.
As somebody that is in the Carolinas, and you look out here and how different agriculture here is in the Northern Plains, what sticks out to you?
Well, I think what sticks out, the differences, the environmental conditions. 2 weeks ago, we had a hail event come through, and I saw pictures that I thought it looked like it had snowed here, right? And then you turn around and it gets hot and it gets dry, and you look at the different crops. So that's the differences. Now, it's also kind of different to look and see beautiful mountains in the background, right? But the similarities, because I've had the chance not only in the U.S., but I've traveled globally with ag, a farmer is a farmer, right? So when you think about the legacy, sustainability, their operations, like what they need, yeah, they may have different crops, they may have different weeds they're trying to control, but the core is all the same. So that's whenever you could get a canola grower in Montana with a cotton grower in Texas and a corn grower in Illinois, and they would find more things in common and learn from each other, and that's what I love about ag.
Very well put. Bryan, it's been great to chat with you. Congratulations on the launch, and thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shaun. Look forward to talking to you and being back out here when we're actually commercially selling in 2027.
Yeah, great stuff. We'll be right back here on RealAg Radio, broadcasting from Great Falls, Montana with BASF right after this. Built on over 100 years of seed innovation and unwavering commitment to farmers, Pioneer 100 Series canola hybrids deliver a step change in yield performance and agronomic traits. This isn't just better canola, it's different canola. Pioneer 100 Series. Contact your local Pioneer sales representative or visit pioneer.com/100 series to learn more today.
It's summertime, and you've got a lot of important decisions to make when it comes to your corn crop. Let the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com help guide you through those big decisions with input from leading experts in the field. If it's spray timing, disease identification, or any other field issue, the Corn School's got you covered. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com. Brought to you by BASF and Pride Seeds.
Shaun Haney here with RealAg Radio. We're on location at, just outside of Great Falls, Montana. And we're joined right now by Krista Evans, who is with Montana Renewables. Krista, how are we doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay, you're on the stage. We heard some of the genetic potential and the opportunity from an agronomic standpoint of Invigor Gold. You seem to be one of the most excited people up there. Why are you so excited?
I am super excited. So I grew up on a farm and ranch in central Montana. I'm hugely committed to agriculture, and now I work at a refinery that refines not only crude oil, but also vegetable oil like canola oil and beef tallow to make renewable fuels. I think the opportunities for agriculture are just amazing.
Okay, I have to admit, I knew about Montana Renewables. I did not realize the size of the operation. And you provided a fact up there that you are the biggest producer of SAF in the country? That's amazing.
Correct. In 2024, we are the largest SAF producer in North America. We are currently producing about 30 million gallons a year. With our expansion plans, we hope to hit 300 million by the end of 2027, early 28.
Wow. And do you see canola from an Argentine perspective or Invigor Gold, Brassica Gencia being an option?
Oh, absolutely. We buy all of our feedstocks off the market, but the beauty of Invigor Gold is if they can grow it here in Montana, then the opportunities for Montana agriculture just are exponential. And so we want to be a localvore at Montana Renewables. We want to consume as much local feedstock as possible, and this just creates another opportunity for both agriculture and us.
A lot of times I hear from the audience in the U.S. and in Canada, okay, Shaun, this whole renewable diesel thing, SAF, it seems like it's overhyped. Is it overhyped?
I don't think it is. I think that both renewable fuels and traditional fuels will coexist going into the future. I'm sure back in the day the ethanol world had the same statements. I think that with the opportunities for energy independence and the opportunities for agriculture, I don't think it's going to go anywhere soon.
You mentioned because of 45Z, you had cut back from 30% canola usage to 15%. Just curious, just give us some of the details there. Why?
So with 45Z, it moved from a blender's tax credit to a producer's tax credit. So with canola, we were using over 50% of canola oil, and now we're between 10 and 15%. But with the producer's tax credit, we don't get credit for canola. So as 45Z unfolds in the House and the Senate, and comment is available for the canola growers, that's something to really pay attention to.
Yeah, also the issues around the carbon intensity scoring and things like that. You also mentioned one of the gaps here, and you were pressing the governor on this, what had to do with the fact there is not a crush plant here in Montana. Explain that gap and why that's important.
So there's a huge opportunity for a crush in Montana. I think part of the challenge is the chicken and the egg scenario. They've got a demand, which is us. I think one of the challenges is acreage producing canola. I think something like Invigor Gold, where it'll expand what growers can grow canola in Montana, will be really beneficial. So we're happy to work with anybody who wants to put in a crush. The challenge is just building something that is competitive in the market.
So where are you pulling out of now then? Do you pull out of the PNW or out of crush plants out of Canada? Where are you pulling from?
So we buy off the market. So we buy from wherever. We do buy some canola oil out of Canada, but with the renewable volume obligation with 50% RIN value for out of country feedstocks, that'll definitely add challenge. But again, that adds more opportunity for U.S. grown feedstocks.
So as you look here and you see the group of growers, they seem very excited about this opportunity to add potentially a crop type to the rotation that was, there's a lot of wheat. There is some chem fallow, and then there's a splattering of pulses throughout the state. They seem pretty excited about this and maybe the opportunity to grow canola in areas where there were more fringe acres previously.
Well, and I'm not necessarily an expert at the agronomics of it, but I think Montana producers are always looking for rotation crops that provide a reasonable, if not better, rate of return. And everything we've heard about canola is it's not only a rate of return, but your improved soil health. And when we start to talk about regenerative ag at Montana Renewables, that's important to us. We want the whole system to work better. So I think it could be a win-win.
Yeah. You said you're going to be producing 300 million gallons by 2027.
Correct. That's our goal, is max SAF. We want to increase our SAF production to 300 million gallons. We also produce renewable diesel and renewable naphtha and renewable hydrogen. So, but yes, we're going to increase our production of SAF as it relates to the others and then increase even more.
Very cool stuff. It was very great to meet you and great to see you out here in the field, and congratulations on the success there at Montana Renewables.
Thank you.
Joined right now by Dale Flikkema, who farms out in Bozeman, Montana. Hey, Dale, how are we doing?
Doing great.
Now, Dale, you're also involved in the national organization. Talk about that.
So, yeah, currently I'm sitting as the current vice president of the U.S. Canola Association.
We know that there is 20-plus million acres of canola in Western Canada, but there's a big opportunity for canola in the United States. It's an important crop to you because you're serving nationally on the board. Talk about the potential.
Well, I think the potential for U.S. canola acres to grow is unlimited, basically, especially with the 45Z laws. If that comes into effect for us, we're definitely working at the national level to make the renewable canola into the renewable fuel standards. And, the U.S. is an importer of canola and canola oil, so it's a great crop that we can use right in our own country. So
yeah, absolutely. Is the biofuel angle, does that take up all the oxygen in the board meetings, or what else are you working on?
Well, a lot of the other things are chemical, and right now too, the MAHA movement, we're a little bit concerned about how that's going to affect canola oil or all vegetable oils, right? So, on a national level, those are all things that we discuss, and we can talk to our national leaders about, and at least give our opinions of what we know, and try to promote the science of what's behind canola, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's seed oils are very, very safe, and canola is obviously a big part of that, along with soybean oil is two great examples. Now, what do you have any comment, or we talk about it? There's endless potential for canola in the U.S. Do you hear? Is there any research in terms of what the acre could be long term?
Well, I don't know that answer.
Okay.
It'd be completely speculative.
Because I've heard some people say like it could be a 5 million acre market. Like it's hard to tell, but days like today kind of make you sort of believe, okay, like acres that used to be fringe could potentially have some opportunity as we look at these brassica gentias.
So yeah, if you want to call it this is a cool season crop, right?
Yep.
And so if we can get this, if you want to call it down south if you want to call it the southern states, it could be huge potential for acres if you want to call it a winter crop, right?
Yeah.
Something that's maybe non-traditionally that we think of, but also then if you want to call it capture carbon in the winter in the southern states, and then put that right back into the fuel tank on the renewable fuel standards. So to me, if you want to talk about how many acres it could be, again, I think it's limitless, really.
Big opportunity.
Big opportunity. There again, I think it'd be awesome if we could be a part of the national solution for not only energy interdependence, but also maybe clean air, right?
Yeah. So as a Montana farmer, what did you think about today?
Well, today it's always exciting to see our industry partners step up and show us what they're doing and what they're working on, and bring a product to market. This could help us in lots of different ways, right? Sometimes you don't really realize how much good it's going to do until you actually get it in the field and get it working, right?
Fair.
So to me, it's always exciting to see another, if you want to call it, tool in the toolbox, right?
Yeah. What's currently in your rotation?
Oh, I have about 10 different crops.
Really?
So I have cattle, peas, lentils, corn, soy, sunflowers.
Irrigation?
Some irrigation, some dry land, yes.
Yeah. In a state like Montana, sort of similar to, say, Saskatchewan or southern Alberta, big difference between irrigation and dryland farming.
Correct, yeah, big difference.
Yeah. I was talking... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
But, it's amazing to me how, when we talk to our Canadian farmers and friends, it's amazing how their problems are basically our problems too. Right?
Oh, Dale.
We're very intertangled.
So similar.
Yep.
Same opportunities, same challenges, same barriers. It's got to get together more often. That's what we try to do with RealAg Radio, broadcasting in both countries. So
sure,
for sure. It's interesting. I talked to a couple growers here from Montana, and they're excited because they're kind of like on fallow and wheat. And they sometimes grow a little bit of lentils, but they were looking at the opportunity here with Invigor Gold and Brassica Gentias. It's like, man, if this can work out, that's an option. And so I really get the impression here along this I-15 corridor, Montana North or Great Falls North, people are looking for some additional options.
Correct. Well, right now we're looking for something profitable, right?
Yeah.
Right. What can we grow that? I mean, wheat's in the tank and our inputs are way through the roof. Our equipment's just we got to run them over more acres, right?
Yep.
And to grow a summer follow crop doesn't pay, right?
USDA came out with their 2026 expectation on input prices, and you'd expect to, Dale, they're not going lower.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And so when we can bring different crops bring crop diversity into our programs, I see that on my farm, that my soil's different, right? My plants are healthier. My plants seem to do way better following a different crop, right? So when I follow canola, I can see a yield boost in my wheat. When I'm following wheat, I see a yield boost in my canolas, right?
Yeah.
So that they're kind of intertangled. You throw in some peas and lentils and you make that all work, right? Another thing I think people really need to start thinking about is intercropping canola with other crops, right?
Yep.
Right, and we're learning way more and more about how these roots and the structures in their soils all kind of compete with each other.
Yeah.
Or how they benefit from each other, right?
We've done some videos over the years with some people doing some really interesting stuff with that.
Right.
Yeah, it's especially in this kind of climate.
All right. No, I think that's we're just at the tip of understanding what's under our feet.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we don't have any idea really how much microbiology is in our soils and how we can benefit that, right? We've all been beat into our head that it's got to be seed, fertilizer, and chemistry that's going to drive our yields. But honestly, some of that we need to sit down and really think: Are we at the end of those benefits?
What else can we do?
What else can we do? Yep. And to me, the microbiology in our soils is probably our next step.
Good stuff. Before we wrap up here, I just got to ask you, how is your crop looking this year?
You know, our crops are okay in Bozeman. We're right on the verge of being a little bit droughty. We haven't seen really any measurable rain in probably 30, 40 days. We're holding on. I've got quite a bit of my irrigation waters still good up in the mountains. We're all surface water, so we're looking good that way. But the other thing I've noticed too, our crops are ahead probably 2 weeks than normal. So,
yeah. Well, Dale, thanks a lot for joining us here today. I really do appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
We've got more of RealAg Radio from the Invigor Gold launch in Great Falls, Montana, right after this quick break.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomists, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomists with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
How's your seed quality? What should you treat with? What about herbicide carryover and environmental concerns? Spring is here, and you've got a lot of things to think about in regards to your pulse crop. The Pulse School on Real Agriculture has information and advice for all these questions and more to help you navigate this season. Brought to you by BASF. Pulse School episodes are available at pulseschool.com, realagriculture.com, or as a podcast on your favorite streaming service. Download the latest episode today.
Having a great time here outside of Great Falls, Montana. We're almost to cocktail hour. We're getting closer. So thanks for sticking with us, everybody. And today's show is brought to you by BASF. We're at the launch of Invigor Gold, and right now we're joined by Stewart Brandt, who is the head of canola breeding global head of canola breeding, I should say. Hey, Stewart, how's it going?
Very good. Nice to meet you, Shaun.
So everybody's been telling me here. I've been trying to ask some technical questions. They've all deferred, and they said you got to talk to Stewart. So I'm looking forward to this. You're kind of the guy behind a lot of this from a technical standpoint.
So I've been very fortunate that I started out in this business back in the early 90s before we had products on the market, and we were really setting up our breeding program and developing traits and technologies to put into canola. So I've been really fortunate to be around a lot of really good people over the years that it's allowed us to launch some really important technologies into growers' hands in North America.
So Gencia has been around for a while, okay? Why now? Why Invigor Gold here outside of Great Falls in 2025? What are we doing, and how did we get here?
So I think it's been a little bit of a labor of love for us. It's starting out with a product that was really rough and maybe didn't have the right fit for agriculture in North America at a time, and we just needed some time in order to develop the crop, have a hybridization system, and really make an offer to growers that can be compelling. And I think it's also finding the right place to grow this crop. And really it's taken us some time to figure out that it really does have a good fit in some of these lower organic matter soils, places where they get lots of heat and maybe they don't get quite so much moisture as they do in other parts of, for example, Western Canada.
Now, I had a grower DM me. They saw I was putting a bunch of pictures from the event this afternoon. They said, I've done Gencia. Yeah, I'm good. Don't need to try again. But I kind of my impression here, this isn't your grandpa's Gencia.
No, it's a lot different. So what we've been able to do is we've been able to improve the bottom end of the yield to make it more competitive, but we've also improved it so when times are better and growers are getting some moisture and they have maybe a little bit better organic matter content, the yields can compete with the best Napus varieties. So some of the other Invigors in the brown soil zone, even in a good year, these will compete very well, and often that was a challenge with some of the early Gencia, that work that had been done.
So in the target areas, the target geographies, like here in the Golden Triangle, the number I heard today from the stage, Bryan was talking about 8%. Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, so that's what we've measured kind of on average over the last number of years over many sites. So it doesn't always average out to be 8. Sometimes it's a little bit more when we have drier conditions. It'll be more favor over Napus. Sometimes it's a little bit closer, but generally what we found over the last 3 years is about an 8% yield advantage.
And as we move into those more traditional canola areas, like say we're in North Dakota, for example, if you've been growing the Invigor line, those hybrids in North Dakota, this really isn't a product for you. This is more in those more drier, arid sort of areas.
Yeah, so if I compare to what we've done in Western Canada, so in areas like Saskatoon, that area going north, the traditional, what I would call canola growing area, Napus still outperforms Gencia. But if we get into the brown soil zones, areas like this, and there would be some areas in and around North Dakota where this would be a very good fit and be competitive with Napus in good times and outperform it in tough times.
If the marketing department rolls out with "this isn't your grandpa's Gencia" and that becomes the marketing tagline, I'm getting a royalty just by the way. Okay, I own that one. I need to buy the URL right away. So what we heard today was 2027 Northern Plains, 2029 Central Plains, early 2030s Canada. Why?
Well, I think it's a number of factors. Of course, the regulatory system and the registration system in the U.S. and Canada is different. Here, we don't have to register hybrids, so that saves us a little bit of time. Also, there's some differences around herbicide and pesticide registrations between the two countries, and just overall, the regulatory system is a little different, and getting market acceptance in the two countries is also different. So it just changes what the timelines will be. It doesn't change what our targets are. It just changes how quickly we can get to market in different geographies.
Yeah, I was going to ask, there is an intent to come to Canada.
Absolutely. That's our intent, is to come to Canada. And we've had, where we've done any testing, we've had excellent results. Most of the data that we've generated in Canada is really what's become most applicable for some areas like Montana.
So, going to launch 2027, one hybrid. By 2030, 2032, I know I'm putting you in the spot here and we're speculating. Is this a family of 5 hybrids? Is this what does this actually look like as the program builds and has some success?
So the good news is, Shaun, we have a good pipeline coming. So I think what we'll have as we move into the early 2030s is we'll have different product offerings for some of the different regions where we're growing, and it'll become a mix of what's the right mix in order to give the diversity that growers need, depending on their cropping systems, depending on when they want to plant, and do they favor things like earliness over yield, or like what we'll have different products really for different growers. So the good news is this is really the jumping off point. It's not, I wouldn't say it's the perfect product for any one region, but it's a really good product for us to launch the technology. And I'd say that's very similar to the way we started in the Invigor business. Our first hybrids didn't even have blackleg tolerance, but we followed them up with blackleg tolerance. Then we followed them up with a lot of other innovations that really helped us just launch the whole idea of Invigor.
Like in an area like this in the Golden Triangle, being able to straight cut, that's a big deal here, because they don't want to swat. They're used to straight cutting their wheat, and they would like to do it on a product like this as well.
Yeah, and this product should allow for that. So just morphologically, in the way that the crop is, it's always been very good for straight cut technology. In fact, at one time it was better than Napus. It wasn't until we developed our own pod shatter technology that we were able to supersede. Our target was Gencia, actually. We were better than that, and now we have the opportunity to implement those types of technologies from our own pipeline back into Gencia. So there's going to be a lot of synergies between the two breeding programs.
Well, let's geek out here a little bit and get into the weeds before we finish up. Different hybridity system than the traditional Invigor, Canola, Napus lines that everybody is used to.
Yeah, so the hybridization system we were using in Napus wouldn't work in Gencia the way it is today. So we had to find an alternate hybridization system. And so we were able to do that. And once that happened, that's when everything was really able to start to take off, because it's something that we know we can not only make hybrids with, but we can commercialize. And that's really important to get the value we develop in breeding into growers' hands.
You're going to be pretty excited. We've always talked about the opportunity for canola in the U.S. to, push through that 2 million acre mark, and could it be grown in a state like Nebraska where it's so hot, or in Kansas where it's dry and hot, and this all of a sudden kind of becomes a potential option.
Yeah, so for me, what's so exciting is it's taken quite a while, but now everything feels real. It feels, okay, this can happen, and some of these things that we dreamed about a few years ago, we can see, okay, the ground is taking shape, and we'll be able to achieve some of these goals that we had for ourselves.
And as the plant breeder, you're the artist, okay? So is Gencia a plant that is easy to, I'm not going to use the right term, so just bear with me, but manipulate and get it to do what you want it to do from a breeding perspective, so that when the farmer grows it, it's like, okay, this has got the output I want.
So I don't think it's all that much different than Napus. It has its few quirks, and plant breeders in Nebraska Napus and Nebraska Gencia cross over a lot, but you do need to have a dedicated effort, and that's one thing we've learned is we've got to have a dedicated effort into Gencia versus just Napus in order to really take the crop to where we want it to go.
Okay, so in this product line, Invigor Gold, you must have things you have in your mind. Oh boy, if we can just do this could potentially really take off. Like in wheat, we talk about, Fusarium head blight resistance, or, stripe rust resistance, those kinds of things. What's the issue here? Is there something that's in the back of your head where, like, man, okay, there's a barrier here. If we get through that, we are gold. Oh, see what I did there?
So a couple things that we think would really push it over the edge is if we could increase seed size. We'd like to get the planting seed size to be more similar to Napus, and even the seed that sets on the plant. So there's lots of seeds really tightly packed in the pods, and if we could make that seed size 5-10% bigger, which we think is possible, the germplasm exists, that should be an instant increase in yield of that 5 to 10%. So those are some things that we think are something that's achievable and something we're working to try to do.
Sir, this has been a lot of fun. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And congratulations, by the way.
Thanks a lot, Shaun.
Cool. Hey, before we go, was there a time where you weren't sure this was actually going to happen? Was there like a man? You're calling some of your compadres there at BASF and be like, I don't know about this.
Yeah. I would say a lot in the early days. The crop had its challenges, so hybridizing it was very difficult. The height, the lodging, these are just all things where we knew it was going to take a lot of effort to get there in breeding. When we started bringing in canola quality, we started to lose some yield, and we went, well, are we just going to make this the same as Napus in the end? So there's many times throughout the journey that you think, okay, I don't know if we're going to get there. So that's what makes it pretty exciting and quite gratifying to know we're at that point where we're starting to launch it.
Great story. I appreciate you sharing. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Shaun.
Okay, well, that's a wrap from the Invigor Gold launch here in Great Falls, Montana. Appreciate everybody tuning in today. Really want to thank BASF for inviting RealAg Radio to be a part of this very special product launch here today. So remember, Invigor Gold, it is hybrid Brassica Gencia, launching in Montana and the Northern Plains 2027, Central Plains in 2029, and hopefully Canada sometime in the early 2030s. And as we just heard from Stewart, there is some obstacles, but we're going to sort through that a little bit more here in the coming weeks and months. Now, if you have any feedback on today's show, I'd love to hear from you. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Exciting days here today with BASF, and appreciate everybody tuning in and getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio. Cheers, everybody.